Ever wonder how some DJs just stay at the top of their game after years and years?
Yeah.
Like Armin Van Buuren, the guy's a legend, right?
Absolutely, he's a legend in trance.
Still rocking festivals, still dropping these huge tracks. So today we're diving into an interview he did, and he really gets into like the nitty-gritty of his production secrets.
Cool.
It's fascinating stuff. So whether you're like a producer yourself or just want to know how these incredible tracks get made,
Right.
get ready for some serious aha moments.
I'm excited.
So one thing that really struck me was how Armin stays fresh, you know?
Yeah.
Trance has been around for decades, but he doesn't sound like he's stuck in a time warp.
Well, and it's interesting because he's not jumping on every trend.
Right.
He seems to tap into what really makes a track connect. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like on a deeper level.
He even mentioned Deadmau 5 as an influence.
See? And that's what I mean.
Wow, yeah.
It's about figuring out why some sounds work, why they hit people a certain way.
It's like reverse engineering a hit song, but then like making it your own.
Exactly.
Which I guess makes sense when you think about how DJs build their sets.
Right.
It's not just random bangers, there's an art to it.
Totally, like taking the crowd on a journey.
Yes, creating a whole vibe.
And it's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pushing your sound, but also giving DJs something they can actually work with.
100%. So we've talked about Armin finding that inspiration, but how does he take that and actually build a track?
Yeah, how does he get started?
Well, he revealed that he keeps it surprisingly simple at the beginning.
Okay.
He starts with an 8-bar theme.
Really?
Yeah.
Just 8 bar?
Yeah. Like a little seed for the whole track.
Huh. I never would have guessed that.
Me neither, but it clearly works for him.
So what, he just builds off of that?
Exactly. It's like in classical music, you have themes and variations.
Oh, I see. That makes sense.
That 8 bars becomes the DNA of the track, and everything else comes from there.
Keeps it cohesive, but still dynamic.
Totally. And speaking of dynamic, you won't believe how he collaborates with his production partner. They use this thing called MIDI over LAN.
MIDI over LAN. Was that like Zoom for music?
Basically, they can work on the same project at the same time remotely.
Whoa, that's wild.
Imagine like a virtual studio jamming with someone miles away.
That's insane. No wonder these guys are killing it.
And get this, he said some of his biggest tracks were actually made in under 2 hours using this method.
Wow, so sometimes inspiration just strikes, and you got to be ready to capture it.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about finding that inspiration, laying down those first 8 bars.
Right, building that foundation.
But then there's that magic ingredient, sound design.
Yeah, it's where you really bring the track to life.
Totally. And Armin had some surprising insights here.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
You'd think this guy uses every crazy plugin under the sun, right?
Yeah, you would.
But he was actually raving about this really simple tool.
Okay, I'm curious. Tell me more.
Logic's ES2 synthesizer, you know it.
It's like the stock plugin that comes with Logic, right?
Exactly. And he said, and I quote, "You don't need a million plugins. You just need to master the tools you have."
Wow. Words to live by.
Right. I feel like that goes against everything you hear about music production these days.
Totally. Like you need the newest plugin to get that next level sound.
Yeah. But Armin's point is that mastery comes from really understanding your tools.
It's like that old saying, restriction breeds creativity.
It's so true.
Think about those classic synths like the Juno 106.
Limited presets, but people made magic with them.
Exactly. They had to be more creative experiment, and that's how they found their unique sound.
I love that.
It's like cooking, right?
Yeah.
You can have all the fanciest ingredients.
Yeah, but if you don't know how to use them.
Exactly. It's about understanding how things work together, finding that balance.
You need that recipe.
And that takes us to the mix, because you could have amazing sound design.
Right. But if the mix is bad, it's all for nothing.
Exactly. So how does Armin get that pristine clarity in his mixes, especially with those layered arrangements he's known for?
Well, he had a surprisingly simple answer. Meticulous EQ.
It's all about the details.
He's a big believer in giving each element space in the mix, making sure nothing is fighting for attention.
So true. It's like arranging a room. You don't want everything crammed together.
Right, you need space to breathe.
And you wouldn't put like a huge armchair right next to a tiny side table, just like you wouldn't want a booming bass line clashing with a delicate piano melody.
It's all about creating that balance, that clarity, so each element can shine through. It's crazy how those little tweaks can completely change the feel of a track.
Oh yeah, it can make or break it for sure.
And you know what else Armin was really big on?
What's that?
Monitoring.
Oh yeah, good monitoring is crucial.
So important, but easy to overlook, especially when you're just starting out.
For sure. You get caught up in the software and all that.
Totally. But he said investing in good monitors early on was a game changer for him.
Makes sense, right? Like, if you don't know what you're hearing,
Exactly.
how can you make good decisions about your mix?
It's like trying to paint in the dark or something.
Right. You need that clear vision, that accurate representation of what you're working on.
Totally. And he actually had this funny story
Yeah.
about how he used to test his mixes in his car.
Classic.
Yeah.
Everyone's done that.
Right. Going back and forth between the studio and the driveway, tweaking things.
You got to hear it on different systems.
Exactly. Because most people aren't listening on fancy studio monitors.
Nope. They're listening in their car, on their headphones, through their laptop speakers.
And those real-world listening situations can reveal a lot.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You might catch things you didn't notice in the studio.
It's all about perspective.
Absolutely. It's easy to get stuck in that studio bubble and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Totally. You know, it's been awesome diving into all the technical stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I really took away from this interview was Armin's emphasis on the human element.
No, absolutely. At the end of the day, music is about connection.
Right. And for him, a big part of that is collaboration, connecting with other musicians.
It's amazing how much a fresh perspective can elevate your work.
He said something like, every human being works in a different way, and there's always something new to learn from other people.
Yeah.
And I think that really stuck with me.
It's that constant learning, that desire to grow, that really sets the greats apart.
100%. So as we wrap up this deep dive on Armin Van Buuren, I'm curious, what's one thing you're going to take away from this and apply to your own creative process?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think for me, it's that reminder to keep things simple sometimes. You don't always need the fanciest tools or the most complicated techniques. Sometimes the best music comes from those happy accidents, those moments of pure inspiration.
Totally. Like Armin starting with those 8 bars.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And never underestimate the power of collaboration. 2 heads are often better than 1, and bouncing ideas off someone you trust can really spark those creative breakthroughs.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that's it for today's deep dive. Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.